Alright, I wanted to make this video for any collaborative teams that want to use the standard-based grading approach and was using the 4.0 scale before and want to still use that idea in their classic gradebook, but need to manipulate it to make that work so they don't have to change rubrics and grading scales. So now that the enhanced gradebook is gone, and we're looking at the classic gradebook from a 100-point scale, I want to look at the two options and just talk about it before I go to a gradebook and just demonstrate. So in the enhanced gradebook, if you're using a 4.0 scale in the past, if you gave a 4.0 in the gradebook, we all knew that stand for an A. Somewhere between the 4 and the 3 was somewhere in A range. But if you gave a 3, that stood for an A minus, 2.5 stand for B. Again, some numbers in between there would give you your B, B plus. And 2.0 is a C minus, and so on and so forth. Well, now that we don't have access to that 4.0 scale in the classic gradebook, how can we manipulate it? Well, our collaborative team came up with and created in gradebook setups in your gradebook a topic called letter grade. And we just named it, and I'll show that later. And we used letters instead of the 4.0 scale. So for example, instead of giving a 4 in the past, we created in the gradebook setup types an A value, which stood for 100%. So when we put that A in the gradebook, it actually came out as 100%, just like a 4.0 came out as an A. So similarly, when we used a 3.0 in our old rubric in the standard-based gradebook, that came out as an A minus. So we made an A minus and gave that a 92% value. And I'll just do a couple more. Again, if we used to give a 2.5, that would stand for a B minus. We decided to get rid of the B minus, and we just used B. So we created the value B and gave it an 85%. And if you look at the rest of the gradebook, we went with C. Then we gave it N, which meant non-proficient, so we gave that below a passing grade. And then Z just stood for a 1%, which means the student just didn't do it at all. So now I want to go to a gradebook and actually show how to set this up. So here is my gradebook. If you actually look at this scale right now, this one would be better, one that's not filled out. We want to go to Gradebook, and we're using the Classic Gradebook now. And then when I'm in there, I'm going to go to Gradebook Setup. And I'm going to go to that Gradebook Score Types. So in here, this is the different letter grades that the district uses. You can pick any of these. I have a lot in here. But pick any and you would duplicate them, which would just create a copy of these gradebook setups. So this would be the one that I made a copy of. And now if I want to edit it, I'm going to click on the title. And in there I could rename it. So whatever your collaborative team wants to use, you need to have a name for a score type. Letter grade 2025. So now I know to use this later on. And then I can go in here and edit any of these and put in whatever scores your team decides. So instead of a 4-point scale, if you want to have your A minus, B, C, N that matches your 4.0 scale, your value would be the percentage that would show up in the gradebook then. So then when you're all done with that and you hit save, now I will, down at the bottom, have a letter grade 2025 with my rubric, and instead of my 4.0 scale, we'll be using symbols A minus, B, C, N to put in the gradebook instead of 4s and 3.5s and 3s. So now if we go to the actual gradebook, I want to show how this works. So I already created an assignment I called Learning Target 1. You could call it whatever yours is in your course. But if I just go to Edit Assignment so you can see it, here's the name of the assignment we know. Here's the assignment type based on what percentage you're going to use it for tests for us. And this is the important piece under Score Type. This is where I would pick the letter grade 2024 or 2025. So I'll actually create one so you can see it. So I'll go to new. We'll call this learning target 2. I put my tests under mastery of learning targets, but then the score type, you should now be able to find my score type that we use for a collaborative team for my 4.0 scale, and it's letter grade 2025 was now with the new symbols. So now, when I go into that assignment and actually enter my 4.0 scale, so I can use the same rubric and same tests I had before, I'm now going to use symbols instead of fours. I will use an A. Instead of a 3, I'll use an A minus. A 2.5 B. My 2 is a C. And then below we used N for not proficient in Z. This student didn't do this assignment or left it all blank. So now when you put in these symbols, now they actually show up as percentages as the overall grade because the A standard for that 100%. And as you include more assignments, it would average those scores out. Now, in the old Enhanced Gradebook, when you put in a second piece of evidence, if your collaborative team does this, and you gave like a second test or an improvement test, we came up with some different ways that you could manipulate or different options that you could do. So one option would be is if I gave a second evidence on target 1 to improve grades, I could just put in A, the student got an A for the second test. Instead of a B for the first test, the student got another A minus and increased their grade. This student got a B, and this student increased to a C. Now, if I hit save changes, it's going to average these two scores out. But I want to take the most recent score, so you're going to have to go back into the first assignment once you put in those new scores and just change the point value to 0, which the Enhanced Gradebook used to take most recent. Now I'm just getting rid of my first evidence and now only including my second evidence. That's one option that you could do in the Classic Gradebook when using the ABCN scale instead of the 4.0 scale. Another option is, instead of having both evidence 1 and evidence 2, another option is you can create letters. So if I go in here and enter scores, I could actually, in the comment section, I've included comments such as retest taken. And I've used the symbol R for it, so that I can see in the gradebook when a student has taken a retest for a test, and it will show up now as an R in the gradebook. And then in the public notes, instead of creating two evidence 1 and evidence 2s, I would just have one test, and I would say evidence 1 test was an A, or sorry, we'll go C, but the evidence 2 test, they got an A the second time. And so that's why I would change this to an A, because that's their new grade. But then in the notes section, when they would look at their gradebook, they would be able to see this information. When you hit save, now you'll see in the gradebook, next to their A grade, the symbol R that stands for retest taken. Now I can go in there and know this kid took a retest, and I can look in the notes to see what they got on the first test and the second test. Then I don't need 2 columns of an evidence 1 and an evidence 2. I could just use the symbol and then put some information in the notes for students. So those are 2 options for you. If this is confusing, too fast, didn't make sense, more than happy if you reach out to me. I'd love to sit down with your CT and help you with any issues you're having with the Classic Gradebook now that we've gone away from the 4.0 scale. Hope that helps. Thanks. Bye.